Aim, Kipsters will be able to solve simple interest problems. Alright, so looking at this, it says Jordan borrowed $8,000 from the bank to start building his comic book empire. The bank charges 5% interest. If Jalil pays it back, well, let's have the same person here. How about Jordan pays it back? I mean, I guess Jalil could pay it back for him. Who knows? If Jordan pays it back in 2 years, how much will he have to pay back in total? All right, so this is a interest problem. It clearly says the word interest in there. Doesn't suggest any type of interest other than simple interest, so we are going to assume that the type of problem is a simple interest problem. As I go through and I write my answer sentence, how much will he have to pay back in total? So he's got to pay back the amount of money that he borrowed plus the interest. So we are looking for a total amount here. Jordan will pay back blank dollars in total. So we're going to box that in. One thing that I don't see a lot of you doing is immediately boxing in what you need to solve for. That's going to help keep you from putting things in weird places. Because if you know you're solving for the principal, then you're not going to put something in the principal space because they're not going to give you the answer in the word problem. Okay? All right. Jordan borrowed $8,000 from the bank. $8,000 is the principal, because that's the amount that is borrowed. The bank charges 5% interest. 5% is the interest rate. And Jalil pays it back in 2 years. 2 years is the time. All right, so we set up our equation. 8,000 times, move the decimal 2 times. Some people still just moving that decimal once. It's getting confusing. Times 2 is equal to I. I'm actually going to do this multiplication first because that one's going to be really easy. It's going to give me 0.1. I can do that in my head. And actually, the reason I did that is because now I get 8,000 times 0.1. That's 8,000 times 10%, which means we only have to move the decimal once. There's actually no real written multiplication necessary. So our interest is $800, but he's not paying back just the $800. He has to also pay back the principal, so the total amount he pays back is principal plus the $800, which would be $8,800. So remember, the key thing to take away here is know your equation, plug in what you know, use the equation to solve for the rest. All right. Yes, sir.
Okay, how do you get 8,000? How do you get 400? I mean, how do you get 800 for the...
So that was the 8,000 times the 0.1.
But isn't the interest 5%?
Yes, 0.05, which I multiplied times the 2 to get 0.1.
So you did the 8,000 times the 2?
No, I did the 0.05 times the 2 first.
And then you did the 8,000 times that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Next one. It says Allison charges $250 on her credit card. After 6 months, $50 of interest had already accrued. What was her credit card's interest rate? All right, so looking at this particular problem, we're definitely looking at an interest problem. Simple interest for that matter, since it does not suggest otherwise. And it says, what is their credit card's interest rate? That means we definitely know we're solving for the interest rate. Credit card interest rate is blank percent. Okay, now we gotta go through and find the information in the problem. $250 charged on the credit card. $250 is our
Principal.
Thank you for 2 people being awake. $250 is our
Principal.
Thank you. After 6 months, 6 months is 0.5 and is our time. Very good. Good catch, guys. We're not putting in 6. Time always has to be in terms of years. And $50 of interest. $50 is our interest. It says interest. $50 of interest. So we're going to set up our equation to solve for the unknown. 250 times R times 0.5 is equal to 50. Now when I'm looking at this, basically I can ignore the whole right-hand side of this equation for a second because I want to simplify the left-hand side. How can I simplify the left-hand side? Tuva. Yeah, so she's saying I can rearrange this 250 times 0.5 times R, so I can multiply the 250 times 0.5. Absolutely, so let's do that. 250 times 0.5. 0, 5, carry the 2, 1, 2, 1 decimal place. That's 125. R is equal to 50. Divide by 125 to solve the equation. Top dog goes in the house. 50 divided by 125. 125 goes into 500 4 times. Actually gives me 500 even. Decimal pops straight up. R is equal to 0.4. Move the decimal 1, 2 times, that is 40%. Questions about that? All right, Hassine needs to earn $200 from interest over the next 2 years. If the bank offers him a rate of 8%, how much will he have to invest at the bank? Okay, so this is kind of moving towards how people use this a lot in terms of interest. They think about how much do I need to put in and for how long do I need to leave it if I want to be earning a certain amount of money. This type of problem is an interest problem. It doesn't suggest what type of interest, so we're going to assume it is simple interest. On the CST, it will probably be very clear every time, but if it's not, we'll assume simple interest. How much will he have to invest? He will have to invest blank dollars. All right, if we're talking about how much he has to invest, what are we solving for? Yes, sir.
Interest?
Not solving for the interest. Solve.
Principal.
Principal. Remember, principal is always how much is borrowed, invested, or whatever. So if we're talking about how much he's investing, we're talking about the principal. He needs to earn $200 from interest. $200 is the interest. Over the next 2 years. 2 years is the
Time.
and at a rate of 8%, 8% is the
Rate.
1, 2 times is 0.08. Set up our equation. P times 0.08 times 2 is equal to 200. Again, basically ignoring the right-hand side of this equation for a second, I'm going to simplify by multiplying 0.08 times 2. That's going to give me 0.16. P times 0.16 is equal to 200. Simple one-step equation solved by dividing both sides by 0.16. And go ahead and put this division over here. Top dog goes in the house. We get 0.16. This is where a lot of people make mistakes. Got to move the decimal 1, 2 times here. So we move the decimal 1, 2 times. Make sure that you're really neat about where that work goes into. 16 goes into 2 0 times, but it does go into 20. So that number 1 that it goes in has to go straight above that 0 from the 20. 16 is 4. Going to bring down a 0. 16 goes into 42 times. It's 36. It's 32, sorry, thank you. Is 8. Bring down the 0. Goes in 5 times. It's going to be 80. And if you're not very neat with your work, you're going to tell me that the answer is 125. Okay? But if your decimal's popping straight up, you still got one place value you've got to fill there. Neatness in your work. Yes, sir. It's a 0. So we put in 1,250 is equal to P. So we know that he will have to invest $1,250 if he wants to earn that $200 over the next 2 years. Questions about that? Yes, Cassandra.
I don't get where you put how you put the step like P. Is that like an X or is that like time?
It's a multiplication.
Oh.
All right, Sarah borrowed $750 and had to pay back $900 at the end of 3 years. What was the interest rate? So this one's clearly asking, what is the interest rate? So it's a simple interest problem. And this is one that I think a lot of you have to be really careful of, setting up this information. All right, so go through and read. She borrowed $750. $750 is the principal. That's what's borrowed or loan. Sorry, that looks like a 780. I'm going to fix that. All right, she had to pay back $900. $900 is the... Okay, so Marquita's stuck in her brain. She's thinking really quickly. Her first instinct was total amount, and then she's like, well, maybe it's interest. So you're on the right track, and the fact that she's thinking about that makes her about 3 steps ahead of half of the other people in this grade level. Because a lot of people are just going to jump and like, all right, it's the interest. But when you pay back not just the interest, you pay back the total amount. So she's paying back a total amount of $900. At the end of 3 years. 3 years is the time. Now, as I go through and start to set up my equation, I have a small problem here. 700 times R times 3 is equal to interest. But at this point, we don't know what the interest is. Is there a way we can figure out how much interest she paid? Mr. LaRue? Nope. Psalm. Yeah, subtract the total amount from the principal, because that's going to tell us the difference, and the difference is how much extra she had to pay. So that tells us that she had to pay $150 of interest on top of her principal. That's the one you got to be careful of, because there are 2 things that happen here. Number one, a lot of you will automatically plug in the $900 for the interest, or number 2, when you don't see interest there, you're just going to kind of write the equation as, you'll just kind of go, oh, straight across the board, I don't see anything here, and you'll still write it as 900, as if it were the interest. That's not the equation. P times R times T does not equal total amount. It equals the interest, which we just decided was $150. So, questions? Cassandra.
Okay, so how did you subtract the 900 and... Yeah, 750.
So we knew that the total amount was 900 and that something was added to the 750 to get that. To find out what was added, we just did the inverse. We did the subtraction to find the difference. All right. I'm going to rearrange this really quickly. 750 times 3 times R is equal to 150. Now I can multiply 750 times 3. Zero is 5, carry the 1. That's going to be $2,250 times R. Equals 150. Divide both sides by 2,250. R is equal to, we'll have to do some serious division here. I'm going to get one, top dog goes in the house. Mr. Boots, careful there. 150, 2,250. Decimal 1 time. Still can't go into 1,500. Decimal 2 times. 2,250 goes into 15,000. Let's see, would be 4,500. I'm gonna go 6. 2,250 times 6. I'm gonna have to figure out what that is. Zero, carry the 3 is 5 is carry the 1. 1,350 or 13,500. And when I subtract, I'm going to get 1,500. And so it looks like when we bring down the 0, we're going to see that this is going to end up repeating. So we get 0.066 repeating. Remember, I always want you to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So 1, 2, this would be 6.66. So we're going to make this round up to 6.7%. Okay, questions? Key points. Joshua.
So, the subproblems like the one we just did a minute ago.
Yep.
It seemed like
No, I think he's on the right track. Talking about that last problem. What was kind of new and important about that problem, Monty?
Make sure you know if it's the total amount or the interest.
Yep, and if it's giving you the total amount, how are you going to find the interest?
You subtract the total amount from the...
All right, you can subtract total amount minus the principal to get the interest. Other than that, second key point is one that we're just going to rewrite from yesterday. Get the info from the problem. Into P times R times T equals I, and solve for the unknown. That's all it is.